All right, this segment is sponsored by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV. Two matchups specifically on one side of the ball that we're going to dig into here. The first one, the Eagles offense against the Patriots defense. Just a fantastic potential chess match here between these two units. An Eagles offense that presents myriad problems of all sorts to any defense they play against, and a defense that you and I are both bullish on. I think I had them as the top three defense heading into the season, a defense with a ton of flexibility and options that I think is a very interesting counterbalance to a Philadelphia Eagles offense that can do so much. Number one thing you are zeroing in on watching these two units play against each other.
The number one thing I'm zeroing in on is who does Bill Belichick / Steve Belichick / Mayo. I'll never know who is dialing these plays up. Who did they zero in on? The Bill Belichick has been known. They run a lot of man coverage and a lot of one double coverage, which is they identify the number one target or what they deem to be the number one target on the opposing team, especially on passing downs. They double team them, and then they put their best corner on the next best receiver, or sometimes that is the best receiver. So with an Eagles team that has Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, and Dallas Goedert, do they live in that world? Last year, we saw this Patriots team lean into different things. They ran a little bit more quarters coverage than they ever have. That I've ever seen a Belichick defense do. A little softer stuff. They blitzed a little bit less. So do they lean into those things? Do they lean into typical Belichick stuff? They got drafted Christian Gonzalez in the first round, and then they lean into their front, or do they tweak because they are playing an Eagles offense that has so much firepower, is built to win up front, and just has answers usually? They are the if this, then that offense. You take away this, we're going to do that. You take away that, we're going to do this. And they do it over and over, but they're going against Bill Belichick. I want to see what Belichick comes up with, what his answer to this riddle that is the Eagles offense.
I cannot wait to see what that answer looks like, because there are teams that had success against the Eagles offense last year, like the Colts, for example. The Colts played the Eagles offense very well last year. They were in cover. The Bears played them pretty well, but the Colts specifically, the Colts were in cover one on like 53% of the Patriots offensive play, or the Eagles offensive plays when they played last year. I was like, oh, well, how did the Eagles do against man coverage overall last season? They were the best team in the league against man coverage last season.
Launches it to them.
I don't exactly. So you have those matchups on the outside if you're going to play man, and then if you're not going to play man, they've got 10,000 RPOs that they can run against you. So there's so many different ways they can attack you. It's hard to kind of zero in on what the single answer is and the single model is to slow this team down. And you have a rookie corner potentially on the outside with Christian Gonzalez having to man up against AJ Brown or Devontae Smith if they want to live in that world. So I have no idea what that final answer is going to be, but where they land and what the matchups up front look like as part of that answer, I cannot wait to watch that.
It's a great hoss fight up front. That Patriots D line versus that Eagles offensive line. Oh my God. We're talking about all the skill guys. Just the front, for anyone that likes line play, is going to love this game. It's bruisers against bruisers. It's a lot of talent. Even on third down, you're going to get Josh Uche out there, like see what he can do against Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. So that's pretty fun. There's a lot of good matchups. And another thing too is the Patriots love to live with 6 DBs or more, dime personnel. Do they live in that world against an Eagles team that will live in 11, do a little bit of 12 with 2 tight ends? Do they have a good answer with those like body types, but are willing to play physical, if that makes sense? They can kind of match the Eagles spread bruiser mentality. I guess it's what do they used to call it with the Titans? Exotic smash mouth.
Exotic smash mouth.
Yeah, but it's not exotic smash mouth. It's like spread smash mouth, I guess is the best way to put it. So against a Patriots defense that will live in that world and has a lot of Swiss Army knives. So it's awesome. This is a great battle. It's a really good answer for both teams. And I think it's if one team blew out another team, I would not be indicative of anything, because I just think it's two really good teams that have cool answers or potential answers to each other. The one last thing is Patriots do over the years, they love to bring cover zero and bring that a lot. And the Eagles have kind of one answer to that. Jalen Hurts had 28 pass attempts against cover zero last year. 22 of them were screens. That's just me fooling around on True Media. I can imagine the Patriots guys with all their quality control guys going over this film over and over. They probably have some tells there. So I'm curious if he heats them up and tries to make them simple in that way.
They did not want to push the ball downfield when blitzed last season. And is that a tendency? Is that just a feature of this offense or of Jalen Hurts, or is that limited to what they were in 2022? I think is going to be a really important answer for the next stage of this Eagles offense. Yeah, and I'm curious just front wise what the Patriots end up doing, because there have been times in the past when they've had a lot of time to prepare. You think about the Super Bowl against the Rams, for example, and just how unique and specific the ways they deployed their fronts were against that sort of run game, against another kind of hyper specific run game in the Eagles. What are the answers or the plans that they have for the types of fronts that they're going to trot out there?
And if it works, it's on tape now. And that's the thing, is like, and of course, not everyone's built like the Patriots defense, but when you put it on tape, look what happened to the Rams offense the following few years after what Fangio and Belichick did to them.
I think the Eagles have more counter punches than
the
Rams teams did. But still, I think was something worth
reigning runner-up MVP, all pro caliber receivers. Now got like awesome offensive line, great tight end. Yeah, they have some good answers.
Next one here, the Niners offense against the Steelers defense. Another just wonderful week 1 matchup between these two teams. Number one thing you're looking for when the Niners have the ball against Pittsburgh?
I got two things. I'll start up front, and it's kind of a great stylistic fight. Again, it is a 49ers team that's built off a little bit off misdirection and finesse and speed and discipline, versus a Steelers front that's maulers and ass kickers and really good ones too. And I just love that matchup. It's a style mix fight types of ones. I think these are two good units. Obviously, the 49ers offense, they live with their run game. Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for them. That is what Kyle Shanahan's going to do, and he's very good at it. But he's going against a Steelers front that I think a lot of us think is going to be a very good unit that might give him some issues. So what are the counter punches, not just to say counter plays, that the 49ers get to, and what else do they kind of lean into, and how do they attack the Steelers defense? That is another usually good unit coming out in week 1 when Mike Tomlin and the defensive staff has time to prepare.
I believe during the 2019 season, in week 3, the Niners played against the Steelers. And that game specifically, I remember talking to John Embry, who was the tight ends coach on those teams. I actually don't know where he is now. I think he might be back in college. But he was the tight ends coach on those teams, and talking to him during the Super Bowl week, because that was the year that he's on the Dolphins. He's the tight ends coach for the Dolphins. He's on that stuff now, which makes a lot of sense. I was talking to him about the way that the Steelers are playing against their run game. And that game specifically, with how wide the Steelers' edges played, was one of the things that really pushed the Niners to use more gap scheme runs and kind of trend away from the outside zone world that they had lived in kind of wholeheartedly in previous years and in previous iterations of the offense. So it's always a good test. The Steelers team is a good test for where your weaknesses are and maybe some of the ways that you might need to iterate over the course of the season. And the one question we had about the Niners, personnel-wise, outside of quarterback heading into this year, is what their offensive line was going to look like. Mm-hmm. The right tackle with McGlinchey not there anymore, and just those potential personnel weaknesses. This is a fantastic test for that. You have TJ Watt, you have Alex Highsmith, you have all those ass kickers along the interior. This is going to be a great way to find out if this Niners team with that offensive line kind of match the physicality of some of the teams that they're going to have to play against this year.
Just remember what happened in week 1 last year to the Bengals offense and Joe Burrow. It was against the Steelers defense, five turnovers. It might have been 4 picks, but yeah, 5 turnovers. They just gave them hell. And that's because they were running they did what defense started to try to do to the Bengals, and then the Bengals evolved from that. So they've
done that a couple times over the last few years. They're a very good week 1 test. Remember that game against the Bills? After the year after the Bills and Josh Allen had his breakout season, the Bills came out and tried to do more of the same and live in that spread world. And because the previous
year, ran all the simulated pressures. Yes, that's right.
So the previous year, the Bills had played against more man coverage than any team in the NFL and Josh Allen's breakout year. And I went back and I was like, why? Like, why would you play all this man against this team that wants to spread around and throw it all around the yard? And so week 1, the Steelers come out and just play shitloads of cover 2, and the Bills again trying to push the ball down the field and struggled because they just weren't willing to kind of bite off.
They broke their protection rules. They did. They just did it over and over and over. Just what they only rushed 4, and they just messed with them the entire. It was unbelievable. That's right. That was like, and it was also like a Minka Fitzpatrick like like all-star performance. Speaking of Minka Fitzpatrick, actually this ties right in to my next point. God, I did not expect myself to be talking a lot about Minka Fitzpatrick this past week, but here we go. Awesome player, but how the Steelers use them, and they've done this with a lot of good players. You wrote about this, is they will kind of free them up to be stars. They kind of by design, and it's almost easier to do that with the safety position because in one coverage, one robber, where one of the safety rotates down, everyone else is in man-to-man coverage, but the safety rotates down into the middle of the field and is just playing the ball, playing the quarterback, playing the concept, but you're letting a good player be good. And why that is very significant is because of what Brock Purdy and these Shanahan offenses have always leaned into when they drop back and pass. Last year, the 3 top quarterbacks to throw over the middle of the field between the numbers were Tua, Brock Purdy, and Jimmy G. And that is not a coincidence when it's Kyle Shanahan's 2 quarterbacks and one of Kyle Shanahan's disciples in Miami. So why, again, this became kind of a thing, was that Jimmy G would throw some interceptions over the middle blind because he just drops back, trusts it. They're trying to create yards after the catch. It's by design. Now you're dropping what I deem one of the best players on defense in the league into that area that's vulnerable, that the 49ers are trying to attack as well. Does that come to a head? Does this elite player break the design of what the 49ers want to do if they do get into these 3rd and long situations where they have to drop back? I think that's just going to be super interesting. I just wonder if that a play comes off of that type of look, or the 49ers are smart and do something off of that. That's another thing that I'm really looking at.
Guess what, buddy? The last time these 2 teams played against each other, Minka Fitzpatrick had an interception. So it's something to keep an eye on.
The Defensive Player of the Year campaign just keeps rolling.
That packing the paint idea that we talked about with the Dolphins also applies to the Niners. Yes. And I think that you will see a defensive game plan on the back end from the Steelers that probably incorporates some of those ideas.
The one hitch to my problem is that, or to this like answer I just threw out there, and this one theory, and I just thought about it too, is that if you run one robber, that puts a linebacker on a running back. You know who plays running back for the 49ers? Christian McCaffrey. So that might cause some issues that you don't really want to lean into this robber too much, but we'll see. Well, that's, again, you might have time personnel. You might have other answers that the Steelers might have for those plays.
Well, I don't know if this is a causation thing, but the Niners have not faced a lot of man coverage compared to other NFL teams over the last couple of years. And I think that's twofold. One, all the motion that they use dissuades teams from playing man coverage against them. And 2, with this positionless football idea that they've really embraced, it becomes really difficult to play man against some of those looks. So it might have been a product of Jimmy sucks against this stuff. We need to not let teams play one robber against us anymore.
So let's put Debo in the backfield and hand him the ball. Look at him go. We'll see if that corner can tackle.